Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Purple Noon, a podcast. I am Stefania Conti, and here with the marvelous Savanna Lanausse.
That's very hard to sound Italian.
That's
name.
very well. Yeah, how would it be pronounced in its native tongue?
My grandma goes Savanna.
Savanna.
That's it.
Savanna. But how about the last name?
Oh, I don't know. I think Lanausse is
Isn't that Portuguese?
It's apparently Puerto Rican, but it comes from France.
Oh. Lanausse.
Yeah, some weird, some nonsense, if you ask me.
How are you doing, though?
I'm good. I have the sniffles.
Just had the little sniffs.
It's allergies. It's because, right now, I think it's the weather, because it just went from, scorching.
Oh, my God. Yeah, it went from, 40 degrees to, 80 in, 12 hours or something like that. It was awful. I was dying the other day, too. But that's Florida weather for you. You get all that good stuff. But yeah, everything else going good. Have you seen any new movies and stuff? We actually saw Batman recently, which was pretty good, pretty gnarly.
We love Robert Pattinson.
Mm-hmm.
We love a sad boy.
I'm in love with an emo girl, but instead it's Robert Pattinson.
I don't think I've seen any new movies since then. I've been watching new shows though.
Ooh, what shows?
Obviously the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel season 4 was a hit. Have to say
okay. I will have to get into that. I'm switching now into TV shows as of today instead of the YouTube garbage nonsense that I fill my brain in.
Oh, I started the Umbrella Academy. I know I'm late, but I love that.
Yeah, oh my God. I think that's my mom's favorite show. I've probably seen her rewatch that show 4 times at least.
Really?
She loves that show so much.
I think it's so good. I just started it. And then Barry,
I think she loves Klaus.
Klaus is so cute. He's
and then Barry,
cute.
Isn't that one of your favorite TV shows of all time?
Favorite. You have to watch it.
Okay.
My crush, Bill Hader, my new crush.
Bestie, come on.
When you watch Barry, you'll get it. I'm telling you. It was Barry. It was Barry that converted me. You have to watch it. It's the best show ever. And it's coming back. Oh, I also like Outlander. That's a guilty pleasure.
Outlander. I've been recommended Outlander before too. Today I just started. Oh, and you also finished Bates Motel, right?
I did. It was so good.
Overall thoughts on the show?
It was so good. So the ending was excellent because they did their own twist on it.
And we got a little bit of Rihanna at the end.
I was so surprised. The last person.
Rihanna being a part of all that saga and everything is probably the biggest of that movie. Not the incest, not the conundrums that they face, but Rihanna being in the last few episodes.
It threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
It was great. I definitely recommend it. Fantastic show.
Nice. As I was eating dinner today, I started Pam and Tommy. And the reason why I started Pam and Tommy was because my cousin Sabrina is obsessed with Sebastian Stan. She won't say she's obsessed, but she is obsessed.
He's handsome.
He is very handsome, but it's almost a little shocking because I wasn't expecting her to gravitate towards him, That's
been everywhere.
Yeah, so she told me about Pam and Tommy, so I started the first episode today, and then I really want to see the new movie that's on Hulu right now with Sebastian Stan.
I did
Fresh. What did you think of it?
It was different. He was very good. So the story, I thought it was good. It didn't move too much. It was kind of a slow burn, but he was very good. He was very spooky in it.
It looks very good just from his performance looks really good just from the trailer and how much oomph he's putting into it from the trailer. And I feel like he really dedicates a lot. I think he did a great job going from, Captain America, which the first Captain America, Bucky Barnes and everything like that, I thought he was quiet. I was like, why are they bringing around this dude? Especially when they went back and it was Winter Soldier. I'm like, who is this dude?
Yeah.
I really like him as an actor and I'm happy he's branching out. My mom is on something right now, you know. But essentially, like, I liked how he's branching out into these really different roles and like the full commitment that he's doing to them. Like, I heard a little bit of what he did for Fresh. Is it Fresh or Flesh? Fresh. My cousin also said that she could not watch that because she was like, it was too much for her. So that is I will say, probably a warning, because that's what I'm hearing from most people, that it can be very hard to watch.
I think it's more revolting than scary.
Gotcha.
I didn't find it scary. Like, the premises of it was scary, but it was mostly not.
Is it like body horror?
It's not no. The thing is, it's not a spoiler, but they made essentially, because the movie has
he's a cannibal, right?
But he's a chef too.
Oh,
so some of this food was looking. But in your head, you're like,
a little bit of liver and Chianti type
of
like,
vibes. Oh, this is Melissa. And I'd be like, Melissa.
Gotcha.
So, but like, it looked decent.
Mm-hmm.
It's very confusing. I would watch it. I think it's entertaining, but I wouldn't say the movie is like this, you know.
Yeah, so I do want to see Fresh and, you know, pretty much get into now Sebastian Stan's filmography. But also, so there is something that I did want to talk about. The thing that I actually wanted to talk about was, so as we were beginning this recording, right? Savanna says, you know, she kind of like looks and she was like, hey, Stephanie, is your window open? And I go into panic mode. And here's the reason why I go into panic mode. Not like asthma attack panic mode, but like everything shifts downward in my body cavity panic mode. You know, everything, you just feel like a force going down, right? So I don't know if this has ever happened to anyone, probably, but I have had the most vivid dream that I've ever had in my life about 2 weeks ago, right? Essentially, I had a dream, and the short end of it was that I was walking from in the hallway of my room, you know, walking past my bathroom, and on the other side of my bathroom window, I see vividly the silhouette of a man in a like black jacket, maybe suit underneath, and then a like a not a top hat, but like maybe fedora type of hat, you know. I don't know why, and like I couldn't look at his face because it was, you know, my window has like that blurring effect, so I couldn't make out face features, right?
Yeah.
Very reminiscent of that one painting with the guy with the apple on his face. Literally that exact body and everything, right? So I literally, like, my heart drops, right? And I'm screaming for my dad and everything. I'm backing away from the doorway, but I'm still keeping an eye on, you know, the door, just in case. I'm like, what if this dude comes in, right? And I'm calling for my dad, and he's not thinking, and this is, like I said, a dream. So he's thinking like, oh no, it's not that, you know, serious. It's not, nothing's really going on. Maybe she's just, you know, she's blind as a bat. So, you know, that's probably what was going through my dad's mind in this dream, right? And all of a sudden, as I'm looking at the door of my bathroom, right, I then hear a little bit of a noise, like a so the window opens, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing this guy peer out from the door and looking at me and just kind of like peeping from behind. I go into panic mode. Once again, I'm still having a really hard time seeing his facial features. So, and he's not like monstrous looking. It's not like he had like no face or anything, but it was just like, it was really hard to describe, you know? So I then call, and then my dad's like, let's see. And so me and him go up to the door. We open the door, and then there's a guy there, but now in a totally different outfit. And we kind of look behind him, and there's this coat and his hat in the bathtub. So it's like he threw it off into the bathtub. Now he's in like workout clothes, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm homeless and I didn't know where to go." And I'm like, "Why here though?" And he was like, "Well, I needed a place to stay. I'm just looking for a place to stay." I'm like, "Your story's not making sense. This clearly is not an abandoned home. You know, this is not just, you know, there's no sign on this home that says welcome, you know." And then my dad goes, "Oh, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to call the police." And I ended up having a knife in my pocket, right? And it was specifically a pocket knife that I actually do have in real life. And I remember putting my hands in my pockets and feeling it. And I was talking to this guy and I'm like, what's going on and stuff. And he just goes like pale as a ghost. He begins to start sweating profusely. And I look at him and it looks like he's having a full panic attack. Now, his face, I can actually kind of see. He had like a dark beard, dark hair.
Yeah.
Very generic looking white guy, you know, but he didn't, you know, he's saying he's homeless, but he didn't look homeless. He looked like he was wearing like clothes, like as if he was going out for a jog and everything like that, you know, like it was just very weird. So he goes into this cold sweat panic, right? And that's when I realize, I look down because I see that he's super tensed up, and in his hand he has a knife. And essentially, I end up taking my knife first because I realized that he was going to try to kill me. And I end up stabbing him like 3 times, very vividly in different positions and stuff. Really, this dream just told me that it's like, oh, cool. Like, at least I got good flight or fight reflexes to defend myself, right? So he ends up falling down. He's bleeding and stuff. My dad's still calling 911, getting someone here and everything like that. And the only reason why I did it, of course, in my dream, I shouldn't have to explain my dream self, but homie was going to slit my throat. Like, it was there. It was there. If you saw his reaction and everything, he looked like he was on bath salts or some type of crazy stuff. So I end up in my dream just 1, 2, 3, 1 in the stomach, 1 in the chest, and then 1 in the neck. And so I'm panicking now, and then I'm running all around and stuff like that. And essentially, you know, he falls into my bathroom and he's just kind of lying there bleeding out and stuff. I'm freaking out and everything. And then next thing you know, as I go from my room back into the hallway, I pass the bathroom. I see the guy still on the floor bleeding out. But in the window is another figure. And I know it's another person, but they're still wearing the same outfit and everything. Instead of it being like maybe a white guy, maybe someone Hispanic, now it's like definitely either someone Hispanic or maybe even black behind the window in the same exact outfit.
Oh my God.
And my dream ends there. And since then, I have been so paranoid about it because like I woke up so instantly from it. I didn't even wake up in a cold sweat. I woke up with pure adrenaline, right? I woke up ready to fight. I woke up thinking like game time, gotta go, you know, grab another, grab a bigger nut, you know, like it was one of those things where, because normally when you wake up, you go, oh, it's a dream, right? You know, you kind of have a moment like that. I woke up thinking I have to go. Like, I woke up feeling like I had to move, I had to get out, I had to, you know, start running. Obviously, I recognized after that thought that it was a dream, and I was able to, you know, kind of calm down and stuff like that, you know, from it. But I was just running on pure adrenaline when I woke up.
That's a horrific dream.
Yeah. And so, you know, I think it stems from the fact where my location is that, and I've had this sadly incident before where, the place that I live in currently has like a school nearby, and the way that the school is positioned and my house is positioned is where people at the school can easily look into my window if I leave it open. So, and there was like many incidents over like the past years that I've lived here where, you know, I've been doing schoolwork and like my window's open, and I would have my parents come in and tell me, you got to close your blinds. There's an event going on at the school and there's men looking into your window.
Oh my God. Ew.
So I've always been paranoid because of that. And then also too, like, if they could see me, I can see them. So I also understand how easy it is to like look at people and without them noticing at all. You know, I'm not stalking on people, of course, but living in the situation for many years as I have is just something that you kind of realize, right? So I even like, I've been super paranoid about it, you know, just because I wear glasses because I'm blind, you know? So the biggest thing for me has been showering. It's really hard because I can't differentiate sometimes if there is something over in my, you know, behind my window and stuff like that. So it's been really crazy and really, you know, it's been a little bit difficult, you know, dealing with something like that too. It doesn't help either that like the reason why I had this dream too is because I genuinely heard someone knock on my bathroom door while I was using on my bathroom window while I was using the bathroom. And I went, nope, I'm not going to acknowledge that. I'm going to continue my day. And my curtain was closed and I said, out of sight, out of mind. And lo and behold, it came back and haunted me in a dream later. So now we're sitting here, right? We end up trying out a new feature where we could see each other through this, you know? And of course, the minute we start talking, she goes, "Is your window open?" And I'm like, "My window's not in frame. You wouldn't be able to see my window right now." And I have a curtain for a closet door. It just takes up less space and everything. And she goes, "Your curtain is moving." And I'm like, "Oh my God." I'm losing it at this point.
I'm sorry. I'm
and
sorry.
Then while we were right before we were recording, she was like, "It's doing it again." Luckily I opened up the curtain, I flashed everything and stuff like that, and there was clearly nothing there. It's also very hard to fit in my closet, but yeah, so I had that little scare.
I'm sorry that you're fighting for your life.
I really am.
I really am. I'm sorry.
I'm really fighting a faceless man that represents everything wrong in my life. But yeah, so if you are a sleep doctor, or if you have had weird dreams too, also, actually, you know what? If you actually tried to tell me, "Oh my God, I've seen that man in my dreams too," don't bother. Go to your grave with that secret, okay? I don't need to hear that.
We're not going to bond over that. Yeah.
Not during these times. This is not going to be like let's join a little Facebook group together. Let's talk about. I don't need to find out that my sleep paralysis demon has evolved. No. I don't need I don't know. I don't think we need to feel he's gone from 2D to 3D.
This isn't Freddy Krueger. There's nothing you could do, even if you talk to each other.
Yeah. So, but I thought it was very interesting. It was very. Props to my brain for presenting me with an excellent cinematic, short film
it's on
that
the movies,
haunts me.
It's taking a turn on you, but hey, it's okay.
For the sake of cinema,
For the sake of cinema, stop.
So that's been the crazy dream that I had recently. So just been trying to navigate those waters while studying and having a life. And then, a couple days a week, I'm a little sleep deprived because of studying. And I'm like, instead of the Michael Jackson song where it's like, "I'm talking about the man behind the window." That is exactly what my life has become.
No one would blame you if you took, a little sleep quill. Is it sleep quill?
Z-Quill.
Z-Quill.
Oh, I got them a liquid melatonin on deck, okay? I'm just aggressively just doing droplets of it.
That's okay. That's okay. You need it, and no one blames you.
I think so. I think so, indeed. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed my little spooky nightmare that I had recently. And I genuinely hope it doesn't serve as nightmare fuel for your dreams.
No, we're here. This is a support group now for you. We're here for you.
I can't wait for next week's update where it's like, that dude, it's kind of looking more real by the second,
No.
Also, by the way, don't worry about me. If you're genuinely concerned about me, I do have a therapist, and I am seeking help for this. It is something I can ha. Luckily, it's not keeping me up most nights, but it is something that, especially when I'm in my bathroom, I'm like, the man in the coat and the hat. The man in the coat and the hat.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm human. What do you expect? But now let's get into Father, Son, and House of Gucci.
Woo!
All right, so House of Gucci. So it is a film that debuted last year. It is directed by Ridley Scott, kind of a shocker. And it is about when Patrizia Reggiani, an outsider from humble beginnings, marries into the Gucci family. Her unbridled ambition begins to unravel their legacy and triggers a reckless spiral of betrayal, decadence, revenge, and ultimately murder. So, in this cast, we have Lady Gaga as Patrizia Reggiani, Adam Driver as Maurizio Gucci, Al Pacino as Aldo Gucci, Jeremy Irons as Rodolfo Gucci, and Jared Leto as Paulo Gucci. And we also have Jack Houston, Salma Hayek, and a few other people here and there, all sprung in between everything. So, Savanna, what are your thoughts on House of Gucci?
Well, it was really entertaining. Like it's a long movie, but I genuinely was entertained for the 2 hours and like 40 minutes.
Almost exactly. It's 2 hours and 38 minutes.
Yeah,
it felt it. It felt it.
Yeah. I liked it. It's definitely like I enjoyed it. I have it on DVD. I own it. I am gonna say though, this movie felt all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is it genuinely felt like several different stories were being told at once. And
Yeah.
I didn't know if the tone was meant to be like light or very serious, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
very surprised because Ridley Scott is an excellent director. So the fact that the audience can't distinguish a tone of the movie was very odd to me, considering he also directed The Last Duel
Yeah,
around the same time.
Yeah, around the same time. They released around the same exact time too, and it seems like, I don't know, like maybe he favored overall as a project the movie that you're talking about over House of Gucci. But for me personally, I heard a lot of good things about House of Gucci. And I will say, it's a fun movie. It's interesting and everything like that, especially if you don't know the history of it. But in terms of who was involved with this movie falls short. Um, just because of the people who you have working on this movie. And I know, and we know, that they could have delivered a lot more in many, 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 many different aspects.
Sure.
I still think it's a good watch. I still think it's enjoyable, but for me, as someone who understands, Ridley Scott's filmography, the actors and everything like that, and even, a bit of history about Gucci and what happened to Gucci and everything, it does fall short in quite a bit of places. So first, let's talk about the acting. And I think the acting overall is what stands out the most in this movie. So, and especially in critics' reactions. And I feel like we should first, start off with Boof.
Boof.
I think I really feel like we should just knock it out of, the way. So Jared Leto plays Paolo Gucci in this movie, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be real with you. He was my favorite part of the whole movie. I'm going to be dead honest with you. I liked him. I liked how dedicated he was to the character. He seemed like out of all of them, he put in the most time and work into the character. And I feel like he was a great character who was out of place in the whole storytelling. He, seemed like a clown compared to all of them. But that's also because a lot of the other characters weren't really giving much,
I will say, like, I don't think this is much as Jared Leto's fault. And I'm saying tone is a big deal in this movie because he seems to be playing in a different movie than the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
The rest of the cast takes this movie extremely seriously, which I think works for some of the characters and it doesn't work for others.
Yeah.
He takes on the character of, I forget what his name is in the movie. I just remember Boof. So
Paolo Gucci.
Paolo Gucci, yeah. And obviously, like, a lot of his character is comedic relief, like comic relief, which is nothing wrong with that. But they did make him into like the clown type character. And when you have this over the top character with everybody else in the movie who is deadpan serious, you change the tone of your film very drastically.
Yeah, you make him look even more ridiculous. It's almost like he did a really crazy caricature. Like if this was The Godfather, he was a crazy caricature of Fredo.
Yeah, but my thing is, I don't think that was his fault. Like, I genuinely think, like, I agree with you. I think he did a good job. I just think you cannot have this type of character when everybody else is playing deadpan serious. This is a really big situation. Everybody's going to be serious. And then you have, like, Boof. That doesn't work. And that changes the entire tone of your movie. And then Jared Leto kind of looks like the idiot.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, like if you take Jared Leto's dialogue, right? And if you looked at it on a script, him taking those words and bringing it out, I think does justice. The character's not just eclectic because of the way he dresses and the way he is and the way he speaks and stuff like that. It's also the verbiage too. So this character was written to be this way, you know? So I feel like that he does, if you look on paper and how the performance is, it's a great match. It works extremely well. I don't know if I can say that for everyone else, because some people, and keep in mind, all the actors who are working in this movie are fantastic actors.
Yeah.
There's some people in this movie I think really delivered, like Jared Leto, and there's other people in this movie who I think fell really, really short. Not to their own fault, but because you had those type of leveling off, because you gave Jared Leto the most persona out of everyone in the movie combined.
Yeah.
Everyone ends up falling short. Everyone ends up seeing more blah and bland because you have, and I would even argue that Al Pacino's character, Aldo, would be another example of someone who is a strongly written character, and everyone else feels a little bit on the weaker side.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the only other character I did like was actually Jeremy Irons' character, because I feel like that character was supposed to be serious. That character was supposed to be kind of like the downer of the family, bitter. And I think Al Pacino did a fantastic job. But again, like, everybody is playing completely differently.
Yeah.
And that's like a big issue in this movie, where you have Jeremy Irons, who's supposed to be this way, and Al Pacino, who's supposed to be this bigger, more warmer character. Jared Leto's supposed to be the clown, and then what Gaga and Driver are just there.
Yes.
So it's I think that's a big downfall this movie has, is you're just watching different characters play in different movies. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, and then I also think too, like when you think about Jeremy Irons, when you think about Leto and Pacino, they all had inflation and inflection in their characters.
Yeah.
Like they had ups and downs, moments where they showed emotion, moments where they didn't, moments where they were angry, moments where they were goofy, and things like that. Whereas Adam Driver and Lady Gaga stay monotone the entire time. I don't think that that's their fault. I think it's the script's fault. I think not enough time was spent on the dialogue. And for the whole story being set around them two, they're honestly the most boring part of the film.
You said something interesting to me. I don't know if you remember. And I told you there was something about Lady Gaga that I just wasn't buying. You made a really good point. It wasn't so much the voice, but it was her facial expressions.
Yeah, because Lady Gaga, and this is not to like shame or anything like that, but Lady Gaga has Botox. And the thing is that when she's trying to convey emotions in some scenes, her voice is there, but her face isn't, because she's had work done. And because if you notice, like anytime like she's crying or anything like that, her whole eye, like bottom eyelid and up all the way to her forehead, doesn't show expression, even part of her lips and everything. It's obviously the symptom of Botox and everything. And I think that's another reason why it has, like, I think she really tried. And like I said, I don't blame her, but I also think that someone could have picked up on that and could have helped her work through that,
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Even if they had to like edit in some creases or just some small details to make the emotions look more realistic. It's kind of like when people smile and you look in their eyes and it's like, oh, there's a deadpan behind that smile, right? So that's what it was like with her character, in my opinion. I love Lady Gaga. I think, and I've seen her act in other things too. I thought she was great in American Horror Story. I even thought she was great in the Shadows.
Yeah, Star is Born.
Yes, I even thought she was great in that. But I just think there was a really big disconnect from her, voice acting and then facially acting too.
Yeah, I agree.
And Jared Leto, not Jared Leto, Adam Driver, man, I love Adam Driver. They love giving him the same type of character. And I really hope he ends up exploring a little bit more, right? Because I feel like we've seen, like, Adam Driver's acting in this, it's the same acting he does in Star Wars. it's the same type of acting he does in other movies too. It's kind of like this default that he has, right? And I wish we got more from him. Like he just, the things that I remember from this movie about him was that he would get a little mad sometimes. He ended up cheating, and then he rode his bike. Like that's really like the things that I remember the most about him from this movie. I don't really remember the emotions that he conveyed, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the one thing I did see him in this, like, it was called The Net. He was in a net this year, and it was
Mm-hmm.
basically this movie where they just sang the entire time. That was the only thing that was a little bit more different than the things he's been doing, but I do agree with you that, like, a lot of his new work, like Marriage Story, for example, this, and there was another thing he was in, even the last
Even
duel,
end season of Girls.
end season of Girls, it's kind of the same character traits.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think he needs to kind of, I
And
don't know, do
you know,
something
Bestie,
completely
you
different.
know I don't like Marriage Story. I think his performance in Marriage Story is significantly better than this movie,
Yeah, it
even
was.
though I do think this movie had more than the capabilities. I really just think that we don't see enough of who, you know, we don't see enough of who
Hmm.
Maurizio Gucci is. It feels like a lot of it was hidden. And in reality, that was the case. Apparently, he had, gay lovers and stuff like that that were not shown. And I really think that hinders the movie itself.
Another thing I was a little confused about, and I usually don't have a problem with this. Everybody in this movie was supposed to be from Italy.
Yeah.
And besides maybe Patricia, they were all supposed to be from like the same region of Italy.
Yeah.
And I think when you're being authentic, it's important you get like a specific accent down. These were all clearly Americans doing an Italian accent, which I
Yeah.
think it's fine. Like I'm just being picky at this point, but like we've seen movies that just do it 100 times better. Like when we're talking about like movies set in England or Ireland, and you know, when Americans are portraying Europeans, I've seen just much better accents. I mean,
Yeah.
Jeremy Irons, I loved his performance, but he sounded so British.
Yeah, and I think, the best example that I have of that is like if you remember the TV show Chernobyl, right?
Yeah,
So that is all supposed to take place in, the Belarus and the Ukraine. At the time, it was USSR, but Belarus,
right.
Ukraine, and, Russian people. No one has a Russian accent in that in the entire series. No one does a Russian accent because they realize like no, we'll just stick with British actors because if we have everyone, this massive cast, trying to do a Russian accent, it's going to sound inadequate. I would have personally preferred if maybe they all just did their, either just did a generic like transatlantic or even,
Yes,
something that
yes.
all of them could have done a default in. Because, like you said, like they're trying to go for the authenticity, but even with going for the authenticity, they're losing something in return of that. And it made it kind of, I did like Gaga's voice. I think she did a great time because when you compare videos of her to Patrizia, it does sound very good. Like she nailed the pattern and the flow of Patrizia. But everyone else, I mean, like obviously everyone talks differently and stuff, but certain inflections of words and stuff like that, they didn't sound the same, you know?
No, that's it's at one point, do you see something and do you think, okay, maybe this should actually be an Italian film made by
Yeah.
Italians? And I feel like I have no problem with like Americans and us doing movies from different countries. Like that's totally fine.
And like Gaga makes sense because she is an Italian American,
No,
she does
yeah.
have those roots, but I don't think Adam Driver or Jeremy Irons are Italian, you know?
But at what point do you draw the line? Because there had this for my like I do think there was a line here and they shouldn't have gone past it. I think at one point somebody should have looked at the script and been like, okay, we either need to hire actors that speak Italian on some level. Lady Gaga speaks Italian, so I understand.
Mhm.
Or just make this an Italian film. At what point do we just give up on this? You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't a bad movie. And I really love Jeremy Irons. I love Jared Leto. But again, like you pointed out, everybody is doing a completely different accent the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, either they should have just gone very generic or they should have just hired Italian actors.
I think it would have been tougher because Ridley Scott is a fan of the star-studded cast, you know? He's definitely he's done that. He's done that many a times before too. So, or at least, the actors that people know. So I personally think that the entire movie shouldn't have even gone to him. I think a lot of these decisions, these key decisions, I mean, come on, it's Ridley Scott. You really think he's being, he really has like the film, like the production's breath down his neck? No, it's Ridley Scott. He's running the show. So I do think that in terms of all of that stuff, like it is. I just peeped at my my curtain.
It's okay.
But I do think, we know Ridley Scott's running the show, right? And I think a lot of this is probably going to be his responsibility. Typically, when you have big directors like this, it all ends up on their plate and their responsibility. I definitely think he focused too much on trying to get this Italian feel for the movie. And you know what? For a movie that is all Italians, it did feel very far away from Italian cinema. I felt like maybe if he had referenced or even looked at some more Italian movies and things like that, rather than American blockbusters or crime dramas and stuff like that, I felt like he would have gotten closer to what was needed for this movie.
I agree with you. I think so. I don't think it was a bad movie. I don't think he did a bad job, but I think you're right. Like, I don't think this was his movie. I think this should have gone to somebody else.
Yeah, and it's hard too because even if you think about, okay, Italian speaking actresses today, who would you pick? And it's like all of them are 80, like all of them are in their 70 and older, age range. So it is definitely a hard casting to do, right? I think and I also think too, for people who are, you have this whole fashion mogul, ideology going on in the background, and the costumes and everything, they fall short. They were not, even if it could have been more of a caricature of Gucci, I think it would have worked better rather than doing what it felt more of like what Gucci's doing today than what Gucci was doing back then.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I think maybe someone like Baz Luhrmann could have really brought this up. I think he could have done a really good job with this movie in terms of the way the movie looked and everything. And then personally, I've mentioned this before, I would have loved this film to go to Tom Ford, but I also could understand that would be a conflict of interest for him.
I don't think he would have done it. I feel like
I don't think so too, because I think he knew Maurizio and everything like that,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that might be sensitive topic for him still.
Yeah, but definitely someone like Baz Luhrmann, because like, for example, like when we compare like The Great Gatsby original to the newer one, I will always think that the newer one is better because I think it's such a like caricature of what everyone thought the 1920s were like, the Roaring 20s were like, and it does such a good job playing into that stigma. I do feel like for this one, it could have easily played more into that stigma, but it felt more like it didn't feel like Moulin Rouge. It felt like James Bond. But it's still like not the classiness that I thought that they were going to bring in this movie.
It felt like a British film.
What does that mean?
It really just
derogatory.
No, but like it felt like if you look at British cinema, it looks like that. And I'm not talking about like the dialogue. I'm talking about the way it was filmed. It looks like a British film, not an Italian movie.
It feels like a Kingsman movie with no action.
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. It looks like that kind of movie.
But I will also say too, if we think about other British films, another one that I think outdoes the whole aesthetic of everything that's going on in this movie, that's still a newer film and everything, would be The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Oh, I love The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
That one was a great one. You did have people doing different accents in that one, but it was more controlled. It worked really well. And also The Man from U.N.C.L.E. looked so much more glamorous than a movie, House of Gucci, and everything in this movie is Gucci. And you would think that they would go, oh yeah, no, we're bringing out the old stuff. We're bringing out the stuff that celebs wore back then. And you'd think you would get to hear about that rich history about that, but it doesn't seem like they did that.
I want to know what happened, because the quality between this and The Last Duel is just miles away. Like, The Last Duel, we could say that's a completely different movie, completely different feel. But there is just an immense amount of quality in that movie, and like care for the costumes, lighting, everything. And it seems like House of Gucci, you're right. Like, I do feel like maybe the concern was on the actors, because everything else just kind of seemed a little thrown together.
Oh my God, I just read trivia and I was wondering why. So then all of a sudden, now we have Salma Hayek thrown in. And I'm like, I think Salma Hayek is gorgeous, but she is known for her thick Spanish accent.
Yeah, what was
How
that
is
about?
that going to go? So I just read Salma Hayek is married to Francois Henri Pinault, president and CEO of the French multinational Kering, who owns the Gucci brand as of 2021.
All right. So, all right. That did nothing for the film, though. I'm glad she has some kind of connection, but
yeah, it's just maybe it's just really difficult to figure this movie. And I'm not saying that directing a movie like this would be an easy thing to do, but man, like there were so many more decisions that could have been made for this movie,
yeah, I
So
agree.
in terms of, like, for example, I'm reading that Chris Evans was the backup to Driver. I love Chris Evans, but
What?
Chris Evans doing an Italian accent? I can't see.
Chris Evans does not look Italian either.
No. I do like also like Jared Leto. People be like, why would he be in it? I do like also this little significance. So like if they wanted to add, like for example, they were going to get Monica Bellucci to originally play Salma Hayek's role. That would have been great. That could have been an easily nod to, Italian cinema and everything like that. And then Jared Leto has always worked with Gucci for years. So
Yes,
that's also
that's
like a
true.
nod to the Gucci history. I also would have loved to see maybe instead of Salma Hayek, I think, or even in just like little flashes of people today who represent Gucci, but styled in that period back then. Like I would have lost it if I saw Lana Del Rey in this movie. I would have lost it if I saw her in this movie somewhere. I think they could have had more of the rich history from today's, perspective as well as then's to the entire film.
This is a little sidetracked, but it's very interesting though that back in the day, Italian movie stars were it.
Yeah.
Like, they were Italian actresses were it. Now you don't hear about anybody in Italy.
Yeah, no.
Not their film, really, and definitely not their actresses.
I genuinely think I don't know if maybe there's been some type of maybe the film industry has changed there to where it's not as booming as it was back then and stuff like that. And it's sad because Italian cinema was such a pioneer for so many things back in the day. And I really wish they would have tapped into that for this movie. But in terms of like today, obviously there are Italian movies being made and stuff like that. But it just seems like if anything is being filmed in Italy, it's always going to be a US picture or a British picture.
Right. That's sad. We need more films.
More representation.
Yes. Because I was just thinking about that and I realized, I'm like, wow, you don't really hear no more.
Yeah.
Don't like it. Change it.
Like when people think of Italian cinema, the first person to come up is Sophia Loren.
Of course.
Then you go into maybe like
Monica
Anna
Vini.
Magnani, maybe, there's obviously so many Italian bombshells. Then you would probably get to Monica Bellucci, but that is the past people, like that is all like 50 odd years ago,
Yeah, that is insane.
Yeah, and then like even like I feel like the same way for, French cinema too. Like
Right.
I feel like they have really, they're not producing as much stuff too. Like I mean, like it's just a lot. Like if you look at like the things that were being made up till like the 80s, I would say in France. And then now it's like
The
what's
front
going
runners
on?
are really the United States and Asia right now. Those are the front runners in film.
Yes. Yes, 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 100%. I don't know. I just feel like that there is there's a big gap between those types, and I really wish, whether it is in, whether it's in Italy, whether it's in France, whatever it may be, I would love to see more films tap into the old cinema days, and kind of just do stuff like that. Like I would consider those like genuine movies where you had people who just did the movie because they wanted to be a part of something.
Yeah.
Maybe some actors and actresses wanted to become famous and stuff like that, but the people actually pushing the movie genuinely had their heart and soul in it. And
Right.
you don't find that anymore. And maybe it's because there are people in France and Italy who are doing that, but they're not getting the platforms that, that they would, because they're just making what they want to make rather than making the blockbusters.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Mhm. But who knows? Maybe it's you and I, bestie. Maybe we'll be the Italian bombshells of 2025 or something like that.
We gotta do what we gotta do. That's
We'll
all I'm
get a
saying.
Gucci commercial.
Yeah, we have to bring. It's for our people, Stephanie. Really, not for us. For our people.
For our people. Okay, so we talked about acting. Now let's talk about a little bit more on writing and storytelling. So I do think it's a very interesting story, but I don't think it was done justice.
This might be my opinion. I did like the movie. I own it. I enjoy it. I thought the pacing was great, but I didn't also feel like it was necessary. It felt very random to be
Yes.
put out right now
Mm-hmm.
because you don't really hear anything too much about Gucci anymore.
Yeah.
I like the story, I did, but the whole movie just felt very like unnecessary, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, the writing was fine. I don't know if you feel the same way, but like the dialogue choices were strange sometimes.
Yeah, like I will say like just certain things I didn't like the way it played out. Like I liked the beginning. I liked the romance story that we had between like the setup of Adam Driver and or Maurizio and
Yeah,
Patrizia. I liked that setup. I liked the whole like he was like screw Gucci, and they got married. They had a little settle down and stuff like that. Like I really like how that was starting, and to lead into this descent into madness, if you will, right? To lead into the descent of destruction. And as it says, triggers a reckless spiral of betrayal, decadence, revenge, and murder. It lacks a lot of those. It doesn't fully sell it. You sold us on the beginning where it was a good love
yeah,
story, and I wanted to see it shatter. I wanted to see it fall flat on its face. I wanted to see that, and I didn't get that. I just got side arguments, some pettiness. Oh, Maurizio was petty, where he's like, I got you a gift card to
how
Nordstrom Rack or something like
how
that.
horrible was that? Like you own Gucci. Um, I agree. Like I like the beginning too. What I was confused about, and it was an interesting choice for me, was the progression of like how they showed the progression of Patricia's kind of like descent into like her craziness.
Yeah.
To me it was odd because in the beginning we're meant to believe that like, oh, she really loved him and it wasn't about the money. But then at some point in the movie there's a shift and it was about the money, or it was about like the greed.
And
But
they really don't go into that shift
it
and
was a
what
very
caused
quick
that
shift.
shift.
It was a very quick shift. And then she goes like off the wall, like quarter away, into the movie. So like I feel like her shifts were just very choppy. Like we didn't really get to understand why she turned into kind of like this power hungry woman. And then also Maurizio, like, he took a shift in the movie too, out of kind of nowhere, in my opinion. He was very subdued. He didn't want it. Okay, Patricia, we'll do what you want. And then all of a sudden he's like, nah, it's my company and I'm going to do what I want.
He's slamming her into the wall. He's cheating on her with the blonde bombshell, you know? Like, it was just like,
I really love fast-paced movies. I love movies that just kind of get into it. And it was an aspect I enjoyed about this movie, the fact that they were able to show a lot in that time frame, but it did come at a cost. And the cost was things were moving too quick for the movie's sake. Like, they pretty much said, okay, we're going to jam in 2 hours and 40 minutes worth, but we'll just kind of, okay, she's greedy now. Okay, he's ready to leave. It's a long movie, so I hate to say, like, oh, if they had more time, but if maybe they were a little bit more detailed about their characters.
Yeah, like, especially since, like, Patrizia clearly had some type of mental illness in order for her to do this stuff and be, coerced into murdering her husband through a psychic reader. You know, I feel like they should have got into that. Like, the entire time, Lady Gaga looks magnificent in this movie, right? She looks beautiful. I would have loved that there was a moment where she just looked like shit. Like, it was like, all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, the facade is down. We're seeing her, and it's not looking good right now for her. Like, I really wish we had gotten that moment. Like, we did only snippets, but I wish it had pushed the envelope. Like, maybe just if they really, like, honed in, made her look harsh or made her look like she was losing it and stuff like that, I would have thoroughly enjoyed that, because then that would have made sense as to why, you know, all of a sudden, whoa, your husband cheats on you and now you're threatening to kill him. There's got to be also a few things wrong up in the noggin for you to do that. And I wish we could have seen more of that. Same with, like, Maurizio all of a sudden turning into the psychopath at the end, where he was like, no, we're just friends and we're just hanging out, you know? And then next thing you know, he's banging the blonde girl.
Yeah. No.
Maybe a little bit more resistance I would have liked to see. He was waiting for the moment.
Yeah. I think they were just very quick to turn them into villains when we didn't necessarily needed to see that right away.
I also think, I don't think the whole psychic thing was necessary to make a big deal of. I think they really should have just focused in on what mentally drove her to that. Even if they had just mentioned the psychic briefly and stuff, but then all of a sudden the woman on the TV is now her bestie and they're having tea, and she's like, my husband is cheating on me with a blonde woman. She's like, you have to kill him.
That is really good.
What?
Really good accent. You sound like her.
Thank you. It's so good. It just literally went from her, like, you know, loving the Gucci lifestyle, living it up in a penthouse in New York and everything like that,
to then the whole... You want to know what the biggest problem of this movie is?
What?
What happened to their kid? We never saw their child.
They had 2 kids.
Where were they? What happened? They grazed over the fact that they, like, in the movie,
they left
showed
Act
their daughter.
3 when she got the Nordstrom gift card.
I was like, what the heck? Like, they did not explore that relationship. I mean, obviously,
I genuinely think I remember reading that, like, the girls explicitly said that they wanted no part in the movie.
Okay.
So maybe that's why it didn't go into anything. You know, it was just like, all of a sudden, like, literally, like, Gaga was like, I'm pregnant. And then she kind of was pregnant, but you really couldn't tell. And then next thing you know, like, there's a toddler running around. And it's like, what happened? Like, what went on in the past 3 years you gave birth to a toddler?
I think, like, I don't know. Like, I think this movie was a little... I feel bad, but it just definitely seemed like they kind of threw something out there.
Yeah, and, like, even the trailer, like, even I think the trailer really tried overselling this movie, because, you know, we were expecting this full madness to happen, right? And it really wasn't until, like, the last, like, maybe we got, like, 5 minutes of seeing Patrizia being, like, mad, and that's her famous, like, tea scene where she's like, I don't consider myself a very ethical person, you know? In the weirdest accent ever, which, I mean, look, Patricia just naturally had a weird accent too, you know? So it wasn't, you know, that's not blaming Gaga or anything like that. It was just a unique accent. But yeah, like, it just went to that, and I was like, oh yeah, she's been plotting this. She's been waiting for this moment for years, you know? And then it was just kind of like she just woke up one day and decided to do it, you know?
Yeah, and also, like, with Maurizio, again, they kind of showed him as the villain, but also, like, all of a sudden he starts spending money. But in the beginning, he's like, I want to be a lawyer. And then towards the end, he's
I
like, I'm
want
going
a
to
simple
spend,
life. And
yeah,
the next thing you
I
know,
want to spend all of
he's...
Gucci's money on, and then the whole Paola thing. Yes, that's fine. What was wrong with her?
Who, the girlfriend?
She was ready to jump in the second she saw him.
Also, I
They should
really
have
did
made her more of a bad guy, because she also broke up a family. Also, Patricia was bad, but like...
But also, like, the whole moment where they introduced the cheating was not a good moment, because Patricia was actually trying to be nice to the friends. It was like, yeah, we went swimming in the French Alps, you know, and everything like that.
He was being awful to her.
And then Maurizio is like, no one wants to hear about your French Alps story. You know, like, he was really, like, rude and aggressive at the table. You know, she wasn't even being bad.
It's funny. I feel like but I liked the movie. I thought it was entertaining.
No. It feels definitely more for me on the aspect of a guilty pleasure.
Yeah,
it's kind of
exactly.
It's like a Valley of the Dolls type of movie where it's got some really great aspects to it, but the way that it connects and stuff like that, I would argue that Valley of the Dolls is better. But like the way it connects is not pristine or anything like that. But it's definitely like a guilty pleasure movie for sure.
Hey, yeah.
Like, am I totally going to watch this and reiterate every line to try to mimic everyone's voice? Absolutely. There will be a time where I will do that again, you know? Like, it's just...
in terms of, like, as Jeremy Irons' character for Halloween.
That's in the full outfit, you know?
With the
and
mustache.
Just get a scarf and then tell someone you know that their designs are shit. And then also, I want to bring it back to... Jared Leto and Al Pacino. My personal favorite scene where I actually felt like, oh, this is really good acting and stuff, maybe it was a bit over the top, was when Paolo Gucci is explaining how he sold his shares of the company and Aldo just loses his stuff. Which, by the way, fun fact, I don't know if you know, but the store Aldo is actually owned by Gucci because it was named after Aldo Gucci.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's essentially like a little side company that they do, right? So that is, so I was curious. I was like, oh yeah, so there was Aldo. I thought they were going to talk about that too at some point, but they didn't, but that's okay. But yeah, so I really liked their dynamic, you know, that they had. I did like the moment where they were being, you know, schemed by Maurizio and everything like that, you know. It did have these solid moments where I was like, oh, this is juicy. But then everything else, I'm like, come on, give me more. Like, it felt like it tiptoed around the pool and really didn't dive in when it should have.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Also, for an R-rated movie, totally could have gone in ham on Maurizio's death. It should have been more violent.
Yeah,
it should have been more sharp. I didn't need to see a 6'7" man fall down clumsily on the foot of the stairs,
well,
you know?
Why did we get a 4 or 5 minutes aggressive sex scene, which is totally unnecessary? But then we got
will honest to God say that's probably one of the most shocking scenes because I thought it was on double speed. I was watching it. I'm like, that's no way. Like, I'm looking at that. I'm like, no way. It didn't even look real.
It was so random too. I was like, oh, okay. Like, they were
in her father's building.
For what? And then we
and
see
her family business
and die? Wow.
And they're like, oh yeah, Maurizio's being called to the office, you know? It's like, no.
I don't know who thought that was, but you're right. Like, we got it. He fell down and died with a little shot in the background.
He did a slow-mo fall down, and we saw in his back, no blood. I want more. Give me a full Godfather-esque, you know, shot on the street, shot on the thing, falls down a flight of stairs type of issue, you know?
I agree. I mean, maybe I could see them wanting to be respectful about it. maybe that's the only excuse I can think of for having a 5-minute no, because wait a minute, if you're gonna have a 5-minute aggressive sex scene, maybe respectful's out the window.
Yes.
So maybe not. I don't know. I'm not sure. You're right. I guess they didn't want to hone in on it, but it's kind of like we all know he's dead.
Yeah, and then the whole like I think it was also just so drawn out too, like, oh, Mauricio's getting on his bike. He has the papers. He's doing that weird little clicky thing on his shoes, so that in his pant leg, so his pant leg doesn't get copped to his pedals like a little idiot. Like, you know, like it was just so drawn out to that. And then the shooting was just pah, pah, pah. He falls slowly and then fade to black. It's like, no, I wanted more. If you were gonna give me that intense bunny-like sex scene, I want more from this ending.
I really wish we would have seen the scene where Patricia gets caught. Not just like, oh, opens to a court scene. Like, I really wish that.
No, I think they needed like a full, like, you know, taking a whole, what is it, like a rammer and like just knocking down the door. She's screaming everything. Or maybe her just looking evil and like, yeah, I don't regret it, you know, and stuff like that.
Something, because I thought that was also a cop out. Like, oh, okay, we're not going to see her get caught for doing this.
And look, I'm just going to be dead honest with you. For an Italian film, right, that takes place what? This is supposed to be 80s, 90s?
Yeah, 80s and 90s.
There need to be more gay characters in this. I'm telling you right now, you could not talk about this time period without adding in, especially in the fashion industry, there should have been more gay characters.
For a movie about fashion, there sure wasn't a lot of fashion either.
Yeah, like, you know, they brought in Tom Ford and everything like that, and they were like, you know, Mauricio's just like, he's from Texas. You know, it's like, you know, like, come on. I think they also really should have added more to the party element of fashion, you know? I really would have loved, like, I feel like, you know what movie also did well for this type of genre? Like American Hustle.
Yeah, I loved American Hustle.
Like, I would have loved like a club scene where it was like, I'm in love, you know, like that type of scene would have been really good. They had a little bit of it in the beginning where Maurizio's like, I don't own the bar, but here, I fix you a drink, you know? I'm totally ruining Adam Driver's career by doing the shittiest impression of him alive.
But we love him.
I love him. But yeah, so I just feel like it could have added more. Like, I was expecting the club scene and everything like that, like how the trailer was. And I felt like that even like the trailer was a better match than the movie.
Yeah.
So I wanted more. I wanted more. Maybe I'm just greedy, you know? But also another favorite scene from it is when Paulo Gucci is talking about the difference between chocolate and sheet. That was my favorite. I love that.
Great. I will definitely say it's a guilty pleasure. I enjoyed the movie, regardless of all its faults. I would watch it again.
Me too. Me too. I think this is something that it should not be taken seriously right now since it's been made, but it should have been when it was in production.
I agree. This should have been more of a serious movie.
For sure. And I think it should have gone to another director. But I think everyone, the actors and everyone else tried with what they could.
Yeah,
I think they tried, but I do feel like when watching this movie, there are definitely a lot of barriers in this movie that you can tell, like maybe it was certain names couldn't be said, certain things couldn't happen and stuff like that. And I think that hinders the movie, you know?
I don't know. And if that is true, I do think, like I said, at what point do you either give this film up or just not make it? Because I think if you can't say certain names, you can't do certain things, you do have to make the decision of if it's worth making the movie or not.
I'm just realizing something. I totally think I have an idea of why Ridley Scott did House of Gucci. And I think, honestly, it's probably because the same production company that did House of Gucci is the same production company that did, what's that movie you like? I always forget.
What? Which one?
The other Adam Driver, other Ridley Scott movie.
The Last Duel.
The Last Duel.
Okay.
I totally think in order for The Last Duel to be made, I think Ridley Scott had to do House of Gucci. That's what I think the circumstance could possibly be.
Wow.
Let me see. Production company for House of Gucci. That was, you had predominantly Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Braun Studios and stuff. Let's see, production company for The Last Duel. See if they overlap. Aha, I do see a few companies that overlap. So it's really Ridley Scott's own company, and it looks like TGS Entertainment, I think it was. And so it does look like that there are some overlapping between it. And it probably was he couldn't get the funding for Last Duel unless he did House of Gucci.
I could see that. Yeah. Do you know what he's doing next? Because it's with Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, is that the isn't that a period drama again?
Napoleon.
Let's see. Yes, Napoleon Bonaparte.
I'm excited for that one.
I think that so far, just from the images, it does look really good. I want to see what things that he's directing soon. So he has Napoleon, a TV series out called Roads to Freedom, or, coming out. Untitled Alien prequel. Okay.
Ooh.
Gladiator 2. Huh?
This man's 80-something years old. He has no plans on stopping.
That's crazy. And you know what I'm also looking at? For someone who's also done, and here's another critique, for someone who's also done extensive work involving Italian history and Roman history, because he has done, he did Gladiator, he did Exodus, he did the Vatican, he did a lot of stuff that correlates into like Italian history and stuff. I feel like he didn't flex that in the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Very, very interesting. But overall, I know you already own the DVD for it, so I'm not going to ask you that question. But overall, what's your overall rating for House of Gucci?
It's hard because I guess based on like entertainment value, I will give it an 8.5. Mm-hmm. Based on like the actual film itself, that is somewhere like at a 6.8 for me. Yeah. I think if you are just watching the movie for fun, it's a great movie to watch. It's fun. The characters are very animated and it's very entertaining. But like from a film standpoint, it's just not a great film. So I guess those are my 2 scores.
Gotcha. Okay, that's fair. I think I'd say that I do still recommend it because it is entertaining. It's still a good watch. It's still interesting. It's got good moments to it and stuff like that. I definitely laughed during it and stuff like that. And I definitely looked at Zach and I was like, oh, that was petty. Sorry if you hear my little dog just in the background. But yeah, overall, I think it was entertaining. It was a letdown though. But I think it was a letdown due to circumstance, not deliberate decision making. So for that, probably overall, I'm gonna give it like a 6.6. 6.6 seems good.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you hear him in his little lungs?
He needs your attention right now.
Clearly. He's a chunky little fat ass, and he wants food right now.
You leave him alone.
No, I will call him all the names that he please. And keep in mind, there's other people in the living room right now, able to look at him and make sure that he's fine and everything. But yeah, so he definitely wants some food right now. But as always, thank you guys so much for listening to Purple Luna Podcast. I know we haven't been super consistent. Thank you for being patient with us. If you have been patient with us, and if you haven't, we're human. Forgive it. Yeah, we've been sick. My oldest dog has been having a little bit of health issues. My mom has had some health issues and stuff, but she's totally cool now. She just needed my help for a few days. And yeah, it's just been, life gets in the way sometimes.
Of course.
But as always, shout out to Homeboy James, Sensei David, and Danny Boy. And if you would like to know how to be shouted out during every single episode, please make sure to check out our Patreon. And yeah, I will say also the best thing about House of Gucci is the fact that I have now many different lines from that movie that I like to reference. So like boof, father,
Whoa.
son, and house of Gucci. You know, like just things like that. I do like the little catchphrases that we got along the way of that movie too. So that bumps it up to a 6.7. But anyways, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, tune in next time and we will be talking about, I think, are we going to talk about Godfather finally?
Yep. Yep.
More horrible Italian impressions coming your way.
We love to see it. We love our people, clearly.
Yeah, our people. We're only half. By the way, I think you should definitely check out I think because your grandmother, well, your mom was born in Italy, right?
My grandma.
Your grandma. You should definitely check out Italian not passport, but Italian citizenship.
I did, but one of your, so essentially it has to be like the member of your family didn't give up their Italian citizenship, and my grandma did at one point.
Oh,
so
gotcha,
I am no longer eligible.
You should do like Ancestry.com. See if there's anything else maybe you don't know.
I'm going to look up my family and be like, help.
Do it. All right. Thank you so much for listening. And next time we will talk about The Godfather. See ya. Bye.